Welcome back to the Eternum Labs podcast. Today we have Stan Efferding on the show. He is an IFBB Pro bodybuilding competitor. He is a powerlifting champion, and he is the author of The Vertical Diet, who is 3 weeks running Amazon's best seller. And The Vertical Diet is a diet that a lot of fitness enthusiasts and a lot of people that are big in the industry really recommend and really respect. He uses it to coach. Stan uses this diet and his approach for everything in order to coach some of the best athletes in the world. So imagine if you are an athlete or just yourself in general, if you could take these principles and you can use these different, knowledge and things, you can really optimize yourself. We're absolutely blessed to have Stan on the show. This podcast was awesome. He did record it in Las Vegas airport, so there is a little bit of background noise, but still, the podcast was fantastic. Please make sure you listen to the podcast the entire way through, because there was just awesome knowledge that Stan did not stop the whole time. There's just practical tool and after practical tool and knowledge and awareness that you can use to integrate all of these things into your daily life in order to be better, to have more energy, and just to, be more you. So without any further ado, guys, please like, share, and subscribe this podcast. It really helps. If you found anything beneficial, and I'm sure you will, this podcast was just loaded with all the good stuff. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us and grow this podcast. And if you like this podcast or you like any of these things and you are someone who wants to be a better version of yourself, you can always check out our products at eternumlabs.com.au. We have a whole range of new products at the moment. We've got Apigenin, glutathione, and quercetin with bromelain. And if you're interested in those, please head to the website and you can use the code Corey, Corey, to get yourself 10% off. How good is that? So let's have some fun, guys. I hope you just take all of the good stuff out of this podcast. And it's always great to talk to like-minded people who are just willing to be the best versions of themselves and who will take care of their health and who want to live a long time and just be the best. So yes, I hope you guys enjoy this podcast as much as I did, and we'll see you in the next one. Stan Efferding, you're in Las Vegas airport, stuck at the moment. Flights are delayed. Thanks for jumping onto the podcast.
No problem, my friend. Yeah, I am. I'm in the airport. I'm in the just here chilling in one of the chairs. So we might hear some audio in the background. No big deal.
That's all right. We'll do it best as we can. If anything happens, I'll say some stuff. But
thank you, man.
We should be all good. So just before we get stuck into it, what are some lessons that you have learned recently which you think are really beneficial for people to know?
Well, most importantly, for busy folks who are trying to train, I just have to be really organized, particularly with my meals. You probably have heard me talk ad nauseum about the fact that I'm always packing my meals with me. I take these little hot thermos, and I'm just coming back from Albuquerque now. But if I take longer trips, I just take more thermos. When I went to Russia, I had 5 thermos in my bag, so I could eat every 4 hours. And it was a 20-hour day, between the layover and customs and all that stuff. But that's probably the biggest thing. And we also know from research it's the single most important method of complying with the diet. Is just meal prep in general. Whether, of course, I own a meal prep company, but whether you make your own or you buy from someone else. When I travel, I always take my food with me, and it's less stress too, because I don't have to worry about having to find something. So I got you back there. Then I don't have to worry about finding something at the airport or eating room service, and you just feel like shit all the time. You get brain fog and diarrhea, and it's just nasty, some of the food that is served out there. So I can eat what I want, when I want. It's my food that I prepared, and that's probably the biggest thing. And if I stay for a longer period of time, I just pack more meals into a rolling Coleman cooler, and I pop it on the airplane and take it with me.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, and that's just time saving. I save money, I save time, I'm just more organized, I'm less stressed, just little things like that.
Yeah, you feel good, you're healthier, you got all of those things. Yeah.
And also, when I'm busy, I just have to be more strategic about my workouts. And so I just go in and do I'll superset chest and back, and I can get in and out in 25 minutes most of the time. And I do the same thing when superset, quads and hammies. And you don't always have the amount of time that you want, but you could still get an adequate volume in to get a really good hypertrophy response. I mean, even at my age with all the traveling that I'm doing, I'm able to get great workouts that are sufficient, not just to maintain, but even to make gains if I desire.
Yeah. And for someone like you just look fantastic as well. So I would say, as a question for people, like, what would you say to people who are a little bit resistant to meal prepping and eating healthy food? They're like, oh yeah, I could, but, oh yeah, this, but. What would you sort of say to those people to encourage them to get onto the train?
Well, I'll tell you, I had a business partner who was significantly overweight, and he traveled a lot, and he didn't have the opportunity to meal prep. And so he came down and stayed with me for a month. He just got an Airbnb in town in Vegas, and he flew down from Seattle. And we ate out every single meal. We went to the airport and ate. We ordered room service. We went to hotels. Every single meal was ordered out. And he lost 20 pounds in 30 days simply because I instructed him which choices to make. So if you're smart about it, if you try, you can choose the right offerings, the right menu items to get you the results you want. Here's a quick tip for that. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a little story on Johnny Jones. I'm down training Johnny Bones Jones, UFC light heavyweight champion in Albuquerque. It's been a lot of my travel lately. I've been back and forth there for the last 5 months, and probably going to still be training him for the next 7 months. And, meals was one of the big things that I do. And of course, we work out every day, but he's trying to put on mass. So when you eat more food, we want it to be lean mass. And so, but he doesn't like eating the same thing all the time. And he still likes to, go out and shoot guns and take his dogs and take the family out. And so he isn't stuck on a regimen as much as I would prefer, of course. And plus we're 7 months out. So, he really doesn't get really strict until about 3 or 4 months out before the fight. So for the time being, I just pulled up the menus of all the restaurants that he might frequent. And that includes McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and, you name it. I just did a search of all the restaurants near his home or near where he was going. And here's what I looked for when I pulled up the menus. I looked for a 2-to-1 protein to fat ratio. If I can get 40 grams of protein and 20 grams of fat, that's a good meal to run with. And that's a good, other than calories, second only to calories, that's a macro content that I think is sufficient for a healthy individual, an active individual, if they want to improve performance. And that's kind of the bottom line for me. And I picked out those menu items, and I snapshot them, and I sent them to him and said, hey, if you want to eat at McDonald's, here's what you eat. If you want to eat at Chick-fil-A, here's what you eat. And he has those in his phone. And if he wants to go there, that's what he can choose.
That's just insane. I love that. And I love how easy it makes for someone as well. Stan, there's been so many people that I look up to and I respect who have tried the vertical diet and have jumped on board, and they've either tried it for 6 months or a year. That was the initial trying period. And then they've just gone, well, I'm going to stick to this. Like Juju Mufu, War Plays War Days, like those guys, they're just sticking to it the whole time, man. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
It becomes a lifestyle. It's just, and I don't think it's magic. I've said that. That's on the first page of the book. It's not magic. It's just a lot of little tips and tricks that I learned over the years, because I had particularly difficult digestive issues throughout my career, mainly as a result of seed oils. I'm allergic to them. But with that, I started to learn to be a little more choosy, and I made the quote, I don't eat foods I like. I eat foods that like me, and I make that decision about an hour after I eat. And after a while, you start to like the foods that like you, because you're going to feel great. You're not going to be bloated and gassy, and you're going to go to the gym and you're not going to have a shart in the middle of a squat. Those kinds of things, that makes a big difference, when you can go train and your stomach feels good. So I think people just, they get used to the kinds of foods that make them feel good. And then those become their preferable choices. And they start to identify, once you discover how good you feel, and then you stray. I always say you stray, you pay. You start to realize that certain foods were really doing a number on you, and then you tend to avoid those. And not because it's not a good food, bad food conversation necessarily. And it's individualistic and dose dependent. People have different reactions to different foods. I just try to get them to pay attention to those, and I kind of made the foundation off of, low gas foods. I refer to the FODMAP menu, the fermentable oligodimonosaccharides and polyols. I get to pay a little bit of attention to the foods that we know from research can kind of wreak havoc in certain quantities and prepared in certain ways that people tend to just feel uncomfortable with. And I saw that firsthand. This is something I came to the research later. I saw that firsthand. I've been training, bodybuilders and powerlifters since the late 80s, including women in particular were the ones that suffered the most stress because they were told to eat those kinds of egg white, broccoli, tilapia diets. And they, you'd go backstage at a bodybuilding show and it was miserable back there. It was, you couldn't, that's where we needed those masks, really, to be honest with you. Not with COVID, but backstage at a bodybuilding show. And so my athletes didn't, they didn't have those problems. They didn't suck down a lot of protein powders and egg whites and broccoli. So they weren't walking around in a gas storm all the time. And what's funny is that when I did have athletes that would eat like that, their significant other would tell me how miserable it was to exist with them because of how bad they stunk all the time. So, and I'm not saying that gas is a bad thing. It's not unhealthy for you, I suppose. It might be for everyone around you. But you just feel better, by making the choices that I suggest. So you're right. I think people, they just enjoy how they feel on the diet. And after a while, they just don't really call it a diet. Those are just the foods that they choose as part of their lifestyle that make them feel good.
Yeah, which is insane. And I love how you spend a lot of time focusing on all of the micronutrients to ensure that someone gets as much like micronutrients as they can within a day, so they actually like wake up with energy and feel real good. I love that how, the vertical diet isn't all just about, like muscle building and stuff too. It's like hitting the micronutrients in order to get like as much energy and body function as possible.
And that's still performance. I mean, if you go to the gym and have energy, you're going to train harder. And the cumulative effect of that over time is certainly going to be better performance outcomes. So I did discover that there were certain foods that were pretty rich in micronutrients that just made you feel better. You had more stamina and endurance at the gym, and you could just do more work and recover faster. So I stuck with those foods. It's not really an if it fits your macros kind of diet. It's an if it fits your micros kind of diet to start, at least until you've built the foundation. And I just found that myself and so many people that tried it were like, hey, I have more energy. And that's a win. That's a big win.
Yeah, a really big win. Like so many people are craving for that now because I find that just, 2021 stress is like the main thing that's coming in, and we want to like defeat that and overcome it. And like eating a diet like yours is definitely helping people to get through that.
Yeah, and I discussed that, I think, in the book and the diet as well, stress. And I have that YouTube video about stress for success, right? There's some foundational principles, and I don't want to get into, the psychiatry of the whole thing or the psychology of the whole thing. I just think the foundation of battling stress, as I mentioned in the rant, is sleep, exercise, and nutrition. And if you abandon any of those three things, you're going to be weaker to manage the stress because you can't eliminate stress. I spoke about the fact that you don't really want to, because the more successful you are, the more stress you're going to endure, and you have to be strong enough to manage that. And the strength comes from having those foundational principles, the sleep, hydration, and nutrition and exercise. So just simple things like getting your 7+ hours, taking your 10-minute walks after meals, and eating, again, you're just not eating like an asshole, I guess we can summarize it in such a way. Then you're just stronger to deal with the stress that you have, because there's really no way to minimize the stress. And I liken it to lifting. If you can only bench 100 and there's 200 on the bar and somebody gives you a lift off, you're going to get crushed by it.
Yeah.
But if you bench press 300 and there's 200 on the bar, you're doing reps. And that's my whole idea with stress, is just make yourself strong enough so that it's manageable for you.
Yeah, true. And definitely having a micronutrient rich diet can definitely help that. And I know your book's out, and I know everyone can get your book, because that's launched, hasn't it?
Yes,
Or
it
it's
has.
like,
Yeah,
yes, it's
number
definitely.
one new release on Amazon, 3 weeks running.
Boom! Yeah, I love that so
Yeah.
much. So people can obviously get your book if they want to find the vertical diet. But for anyone who's like, for new listeners, because a lot of people who are listening obviously know who you are, but a lot of new listeners may be like, what are the foods in the vertical diet? Like what sort of stuff in there do I eat to make myself feel better? Would you mind just giving a quick explanation?
Yeah, I build a foundation of micronutrient dense foods that are highly bioavailable and easy to digest, as we discussed.
Yep.
And, I want you to get a gram of protein per pound of body weight, or at least pound of goal weight or lean weight if you're significantly overweight. And that, and those come from a variety of protein sources that have a lot of micronutrients in them. I think it's kind of the anti-diet. And I'll start by saying that I went through a long career, as you know, of working with people in the bodybuilding, figure, physique, bikini industry. And it's gotten worse since social media, people restricting foods, important foods, like you go to a guru diet or nutrition person to get ready for a show, and they'll tell you, hey, eliminate red meat, eliminate whole eggs, eliminate fruit, eliminate dairy, eliminate salt. Those are all the things I start with. I could get somebody into amazing shape. It's a calorie equation at the end of the day, but hunger and energy are going to dictate your ability to comply with that diet. And all of the satiating foods and all the energy comes from things like red meat, like dairy, like fruit, like whole eggs, and like sodium. And so I actually build my protein foundation on those foods. I'll use a leaner meat. I trained Nadia Wyatt, who took 3rd place in the Miss Olympia 2 years in a row. And she dieted for the whole show as the foundation was red meat and whole eggs. We just took her from, say, a New York steak for 5 months out to a top sirloin 4 months out to a sirloin tip or top round as we got closer to the show, and then went to a grass-fed or like a Piedmontese beef, which is very, very low fat. And so we just brought the fat content down. And the reason that I do that is because I want to leave plenty of room for carbohydrates for performance, because ultimately your ability to gain or maintain muscle tissue is going to be dependent upon the amount of workload that you can maintain or sustain throughout this diet period. And the sets and reps and the volume that you can lift, as soon as that starts declining, you're going to start losing muscle tissue. So I'm holding on to that for dear life. And I find that fueling that with carbohydrates is the best way in terms of performance. So I include a whole egg or two, even if you're going to blend it with, 2 eggs and 2 egg whites. If you want to start bringing fat down, you can do that. But I don't eliminate them, because the egg yolk's full of biotin, which is great for skin, hair, and nails. And too many of these dieting females end up with brittle hair and their skin and nails suffering from the diet. Red meat in particular, because a lot of these dieters end up with anemia, and the iron is important. The B vitamins, of course, the zinc is all significantly in greater quantities than in, say, even chicken or turkey. So it's a superior source. I'm not saying that chicken and turkey can't be used in a diet, but certainly don't exclude red meat, because it's a superior micronutrient source. So I keep that in there. And then the fruit's huge for energy as well. I don't know why people even begin to restrict fruits. It's fantastic. It helps. Fructose in particular, people shy away from in small quantities, less than 50 grams a day through fruit. It helps with your energy a lot. It helps with your health. It helps with converting T4 into T3, the inactive to active form in the liver of thyroid function. And thyroid's another big thing. So we throw a little iodine in the diet through some cranberry juice or iodized salt instead of sea salt, which has no iodine in it. Because we see that hypothyroidism is common in dieters, and that's going to cause that brittle hair to start falling out, and your energy to decline, and your body temperature to get colder. As you see, a lot of people with dieting for shows end up getting a lower body temperature, get cold all the time, having to wear sweaters. A lot of that has to do with thyroid function, and we know how important that is for metabolism and calorie consumption. So we include all those foods, and then dairy, really important for calcium, not just for bones, but also for nerve signaling and for muscle fiber contraction. And people who can't handle lactose, we can get them to a Greek yogurt. It's very low in lactose, plus it has digestive enzymes. About 90+% of the population can tolerate certain amounts of that. Kind of, again, it's quantity, dose dependent at that point. But I keep all of that in the diet, and I just have athletes that they're healthier longer. Obviously, the last 30 days before a show, you pull out all the stops, and it's. I've said it in a rant once. I think it was. If you want to be healthy, don't compete. And I mentioned that fitness and health are two different things. And, the ability to perform a particular duty or task, which is your fitness level, might not always be healthy. And that's true of a 400-pound strongman, as well as it's true of a 14-year-old gymnast at the Olympics suffering from, Achilles tendon tears and those kinds of things. So anybody who's competing knows you're gonna have, at some level, you're gonna be compromising health. And so the diet in particular helps to mitigate some of that. And I use obviously frequent blood tests to see what people are, what kind of problems are manifesting over the course of competition, which I did on a monthly basis for well over 12 years throughout the peak of my competitive career. So those are all things that are important. So the foundation of the diet, really is a variety of protein sources, as just mentioned. And then I'm going to obviously try and include some fruits and vegetables, which are in that foundation. Potassium's a big component of that. A daily potatoes, twice the potassium as a banana. I get some spinach in there and some fruit and yogurt, and even meat has 100 milligrams of potassium for every ounce. And so that builds the foundation as well. And I don't really need to add fats. They're in the egg yolks, they're in the meat, they're in the salmon, couple servings of salmon a week. Salmon has 200 times the omega-3s of any other meat source, such as beef or chicken or turkey. And so, 2 servings of that a week, 2 5-ounce servings, get you your 2 grams of EPA and DHA that you need every week. And then from there, if I have to fuel more performance, if I have, a 2-a-day CrossFitter or a football player preseason, or like a Hafthor Bjornsson, and you just need more calories, then I got to support that with carbohydrates. And I can throw in a little bit of oatmeal here and there. I can throw in a little bit of bread or a little bit of pasta, but not a lot, because you'll start to get gassy and bloated on that. So I try and drive that performance with white rice. That's how I fuel the glycogen needs for those very active or very big athletes to support their muscle mass and get the caloric demand that they require. Because white rice is so easy to digest, and then you can consume more of it sooner, and you don't get all bloated and gassy, and you can perform well on it. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the nutrition part of the diet. And as you know, the vertical diet's much more than that. We cover sleep, hydration, digestion, blood testing, a whole host of different variables that are important as part of a well-rounded program.
Yeah, but I love that, because anyone who listens just immediately is just going to take like a whole bunch of nuggets out of that, like whoa, obviously to start on their journey. Have you got any stories that have sort of because you've been helping a lot of people. Have you got any stories that tug on the heartstrings a little bit, that you've been like, man, this was just so good that we learned this stuff and put all of these things through?
Yeah, a lot of them. I mean, just everybody I deal with that and some of them are bittersweet. I was training Hafthor Bjornsson and Brian Shaw at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's like the thrill of victory, agony of defeat. Hafthor would win, Brian would take second, and so you're kind of torn. You love all your athletes equally, and you want them all to succeed. So, but more than anything, I think I mentioned the digestion. Brian Shaw had a lot of problems eating enough food. So did Hafthor. Anybody who's power lifted or a big athlete, even Lane Johnson, Philadelphia Eagles, is 330 pounds now. He was having trouble maintaining 312. And he was eating like chicken and quinoa, and he was just giving up. And he reached out to me, and it's the same story with a lot of power lifters, big football players, strong men, weight gaining athletes. When they utilize the tips and tricks that I just mentioned, then their digestion's better. Brian reached out to me a week after being on the diet and said, Stan, he said, I'm hungry. I haven't been hungry in years, because these guys are force feeding themselves around the clock. And then also, I mentioned diarrhea and all, those are the kind of things that you endure as a big athlete that's sucking down 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 calories a day. That is unnecessary. You can change your diet and fix that problem, but we'll power through anything if we have to. And the same thing's true on the opposite end. I don't want to make this sound exclusively about big athletes. I mentioned Nadia Wyatt, who was only 123 pounds on the Olympia stage. I worked with Tiny Tiff, who was 103 pounds. I worked with a Sacramento ballet company dancer who was 97 pounds. And I worked with a lot of soccer moms who want to lose weight. And what they find is that, again, they have more energy and less digestive issues when they eat the particular foods that I recommend, because they provide, that micronutrient base for energy, and they're pretty satiating. And I should probably mention that the vertical diet is used by both, Tiny Tiff at 100 pounds and Hafthor Bjornsson at 440. But there's some different things that I do. They have the same foundations, the same diet, the same micronutrient dense foods, the same red meat, the same fruit, the same dairy, all of those things that are in the foundation of the diet, the same potassium, but in different quantities. So when people are dieting, I need to manage hunger. One of the ways that I do that in particular, I'll just give you like 3 or 4 top tips for satiety in general. So if I got a dieter, I want them to cook and cut and chew steak, because it just takes more time, mechanically speaking. It takes a little longer to digest, so you're not as hungry. You get full sooner and not hungry as quickly. And I'll use fruits instead of fruit juice. Fruits are high satiety. Potatoes, boiled potatoes. There's an index that ranks foods for how satiating they are. And potatoes and oranges are at the top of that list. And then we'll throw in some fiber, although there is some suspicion, let me just say that the literature isn't as convincing as to the satiety effects of fiber as it is to protein. Fibers, more than anything, it takes a while to eat a salad, and so it's time, and it stretches out and fills the stomach. And so while it may satiate you at that meal, the duration of time with which it satiates you is not as significant as protein. So we go with a high protein diet. A dieter I might put on 1.2 grams per pound. Have to eat a lot of proteins. It's very satiating. They're very high thermic effective foods. I mean, they're netting out fewer calories than they would with a protein or a carbohydrate or a fat. So there's not a lot left to work with after that. Once we get them a higher protein, a protein source that takes longer to chew and digest, and then get them some high satiety foods and a little bit of say salad, you're about done. And from there, you just want to keep hunger minimized as much as possible, so that it's you can battle through what you need to for the time period that you're losing weight. Switch gears over to the weight gainers, and I'll bring their protein down to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, because in a calorie surplus, carbs in particular are protein sparing. You don't need as much protein, and it's very satiating. So you don't want to recommend that to somebody who has to suck down a lot of calories. And I'll use, say, a ground meat source like a bison, and because it's a little easier to consume more of it and digest it a little faster, it has more surface area. And I'll mix it with some white rice and some bone broth, as you know, the Monster Mash. It's just easier to eat more of it in a sitting without feeling like you're, swallowing, all this food. And then it digests faster and you're hungry again sooner. Another tip and trick I'll use a little bit of juice instead of oranges. I'll use a little orange juice, maybe 3 or 4 ounces, not a ton. Really helps again with body temperature and heat and metabolism. And you're just hungry again sooner. I have a video called 14 Tips to Improve Your Appetite that talks about this. And it's just really, it's not necessarily a way to drive calories. It's a way to keep your body temperature, keep your body, your metabolism cooking so that you're hungry. And then white rice, I mentioned. I keep the fiber a little lower if they're trying to gain mass, because it's harder to eat and get a lot of calories out of it. But the white rice, and I use a little trick. I sprinkle a little dextrose on it. And it's not to drive calories. It's just to, again, more amylase, more saliva. And so you can eat more of it faster without choking it down. I like mixing it in with the bone broth and the beef and the egg because of the moistness of the bone broth, it's just easier to eat a lot of it. But sometimes you'll have to add an extra cup of rice. And sprinkling the dextrose on it makes it easier to consume more of it. There is some suggestion that the pancreas can release more amylase, which helps digest the starch as a result of the dextrose stimulation. The larger bolus of starch from the rice. And so then again, you can eat more of it. You're hungry again sooner, and you can eat again, which frequency becomes pretty important when you're trying to bring down a lot of calories rather than huge volumes in any one meal that might just make you lethargic and keep you full for a long period of time. I keep the fats low. Make sure I got you. Sorry, I had a call come in. I keep the fats low, down around 0.4 grams per pound. I do that with both dieters and weight gainers. Fats beyond that, which provide you a health benefit, really don't contribute to performance. And so I don't need to drive those very hard. And 0.4 grams per pound is plenty to get the health benefit from those. And you do need fats in the diet, of course. It's going to support hormonal function. It's going to support transporting ADE and K in and out of the cells. a lot of important reasons to keep fats at a reasonable level so you don't lose hormonal function. So I think that pretty much wraps up both ends of that weight loss and weight gain and strategy that I use.
You just dropped so many actual practical tools and tips just there.
Yeah.
How to do. I actually big thanks for that, because a lot of people get a lot out of it. It's one thing that as listeners are like, what are some practical tools and tips that we can have? And you just lay down like 40.
Yeah. And those they all work, man. I got to tell you, I've gained and lost well over 1,000 pounds throughout my career. I was 140 pounds when I was in college at 18 years old. And, I bulked up at one point by 1994 to over 300 pounds. And I've been dieting down to compete at 4% body fat as a pro bodybuilder, and bulking up to, 285, 290, back and forth many, many, many times over 25 plus years of competing. So, I have a lot of experience. I did a lot of things wrong. I learned a lot of these lessons decades ago before the science supported it, by just making the same mistakes over and over again. I was doing the GOMAD, the gallon of milk a day, the whole milk, and the big cheese pizzas and all that. I did all that. I got fat as fuck. And my blood test showed it too. All of that.
There's cholesterol's no good.
It was terrible. Yeah, you get insulin resistance and fatty liver, and you get high blood pressure, and AST, ALT enzymes go skyrocketing, and all the things I see in my big athletes. And then when dieting, I tried the keto thing over and over again. I was persistent. And every single time I got weaker and I got smaller, and I suffered more in terms of hormone dips, and it was just a terrible experience. So I've been there. I've done that many, many times, and I feel like I found the path of least resistance. And that's not to say that you can't use any of those diets and get in the same condition. I'm saying is that the road doesn't have to be that as difficult. You'll be hungrier longer. Your blood work will be worse. The recovery will be worse. I think I've kind of just made the recommendations I've made, so that just make it a little bit easier on the athlete in terms of just going through what is already a difficult challenge, on either end of the spectrum.
Yeah, instead of having to make all of those mistakes themselves and constantly, get down, get back up again, get down, get back up again.
Yeah.
A big respect to you, Stan, because, man, you've maintained one of the most ridiculous physiques I've ever seen. Your body's insane. And obviously, I'd like to ask you the question, and you've done it for for a long period of time. And you've optimized, and you're always in good moods and high spirits from what I've seen. Obviously, it's hard to maintain that 10 out of 10 all the time.
Yeah.
But, man, I'd love to ask you sort of how you do it. I know the logical answer is I follow the vertical diet and I train really hard.
Yeah.
But is there anything else in terms of actually what keeps you motivated, and what other tips and tricks and tools have you got to maintain that? Because I see a lot of people who are even in their 40s and are approaching 50s who sort of stop stop lifting, stop trying to focus on diet and health and stuff. So I'd love to know how you do it, because I want to maintain that. Some of that. I want to maintain that as I get older, man.
Well, there's a lot there, and let me jump on a few things. One, I did start competing back in 1986, and so I've been at this a long, long time. I first elite total over 2,000 pounds in 1993, and I was 2,300 in 2015 or 2014, if I recall. So for well over 20 years, I was getting elite totals for well over 20 years.
That's powerlifting for anyone lifting. That's strong.
Yeah,
that is really strong.
And I had some bumps and bruises along the way. I certainly suffered from a few muscle tears here and there, and some tendonitis, and I've talked at length about that. And that's kind of if you want to be healthy, don't compete kind of thing. It's what you put your body through to win, and that there's really no getting around that. But one thing I did have to do after I retired from powerlifting is I kind of had to redefine myself. I tried for a while. You can't continue to go in and crush yourself like that when you're 45, 48, 53, like I am now. I have hard workouts, but I don't do nearly as much volume of heavy stuff, and heavy is all relative because I don't squat 800 plus anymore. I'm probably down around 600 now with no knee wraps.
That's still crazy.
But yeah, it's a lot, but I don't do it very often, and I only do it when my body feels good about it. But I pick a lot of exercises that don't hurt as much. And one of the things that we do, even what we do with John Jones, John's a fighter. He's got 10 workouts a week, and some of them include, martial arts. He's got wrestling, he's got jiu-jitsu, he's got kickboxing, Muay Thai, and some of them are us. We got to do some hypertrophy training. We got to do some endurance training. We got to do some, obviously some speed work and some strength work. And so he's got a lot of volume. So we try and do low fatigue workouts, meaning mostly concentric movements with him. That'd be like squats out of change, just doing the concentric portion and dropping them down. We do a lot of stuff with John that helps him recover from workouts, such as sled drags, maybe ATP marches, that just a cable squat, a belt squat machine, you march on it, just pumping a lot of blood into his body, keeping him moving a lot. And that was one of the things I discovered late. It probably wasn't until after I met Louis Simmons and talked to some of the people who have trained with that style, is that they did a lot of volume, which I did almost accidentally by competing in two sports. Remember, I competed in bodybuilding, and then I competed in powerlifting. So I had an enormous amount of volume and frequency through bodybuilding, through a lot of different angles, with short rest periods, ton of volume. My cardiovascular fitness was extraordinary, and that would carry over into my powerlifting. My health was better. I had no weaknesses. I would recover faster. It's when I started powerlifting more and bodybuilding less that I actually feel like I got a little worse, because I just didn't have enough of the foundation, the GPP, the general physical preparedness, the cardio that's gained from all that volume, the maintenance of muscle mass that can actually decline with less volume and more heavy singles and doubles and triples. You lose size, and a larger muscle could be a stronger muscle when trained appropriately, but you have to maintain that mass. And so, purely by accident, by going back and forth between bodybuilding and powerlifting, I think most of my powerlifting success was a result of having built so much muscle mass and being in such great condition and having no weaknesses, because we trained everything from such a variety of angles. And now that I'm older, I just make sure and move a lot. I do less of the heavy stuff, but I continue to move a lot. You've all heard me talk about the 10-minute walks, or I'll have a recumbent bike in my garage or house. I do that religiously. I've been doing that for 10 years or 12 years. I talked about getting one in my hotel room when I trained with Mark Bell in 2009. And I was doing 3 10-minute bicycles, recumbent bikes a day, just to help recover from the heavy squat sessions. And my DOMS was minimized. I had just dramatic recovery improvement from doing that, just 3 10-minute a day. And so now I still do that. I still do a lot of volume. Sometimes I only show the heavy sets because that's Instagram. Yeah. But I do a lot of wimpy stuff. I'll put a sled on and drag a sled around, and I'll do marches on the ATP, and I'll ride my little bicycle for 10 minutes 3 times a day religiously, or take my walks if I'm traveling, or go to the little fitness center at the hotel and ride my bike 15 minutes after the meal, which, I've talked about the fact that it helps with digestion, it helps with blood sugar control. You can decrease postprandial glycemia, the blood sugar elevation and duration, by up to 30%, just taking a 10-minute walk 15 minutes after a meal. It's twice as effective as metformin for preventing or reversing type 2 diabetes. That's why you see Brian Shaw and Hofthor taking 10-minute walks. It's great for their appetite. It's great for their blood sugar. For guys that are that weight, that's one of your primary concerns, is insulin resistance, fatty liver, metabolic syndrome. And so that was one of the initial interventions that I introduced. And I did the same thing with John. And I remember the first conversation I had with him on the phone, a long dead air, when I told him he was going to take a 10-minute walk after each of 4 meals daily. It was just silence. And I realized, he's like, who the fuck is this guy? But we all do it. And he knows now what a big contributor it is, not just to recover from, but prepare for the next training session. Not just from the blood flow to the muscles, but also from the improvement in digestion and blood sugar maintenance. So those little things, which sound like little things, are the things that I do religiously. And that's where we get to compliance is the science, the consistency. is what's key. And if you want to know what maybe is different about me than a lot of other folks, is that I do this what might seem like monotonous, boring stuff every single day without fail. To me, it's a habit now. I don't eat without walking. I just don't do it. Never.
I love that compliance is the science saying that you come up with. It's so true. Like keeping consistent with all those things every single day, they always just add up. And it's easy to fall off the routine, and but it's easy to jump back on it as well. Sometimes I definitely think.
Indeed.
What would you say to someone who is sort of started to have some success in their life, or they've started to feel a little bit comfortable, and they're like, all right, I'm at this position now to start investing in myself because I want to make myself better. What are some of the things, obviously logical answer, get on the vertical diet as well, but what are some of the things that you would encourage them to invest on so they can improve the quality of their life?
Yeah, it's going to be the big rocks again. Get your 7+ hours of sleep. And I have a whole sleep hygiene chapter in there where I talk about, a dark room, a quiet room, a cool room, the blue light management, the worry journal at night, just kind of offloading all the stuff that's going on onto a piece of paper. It's kind of a little to-do list for the next day. Those are the big things. And then just affording yourself an opportunity to be successful. Most people, they just don't even get into bed until midnight and have to get up at 6 a.m. That right there, you cannot be successful. And so at least give yourself that 8-hour window, and then ditching the phone becomes probably the next biggest challenge. If you go to bed at 10 o'clock and you're scrolling through Instagram or watching, a podcast, and next thing you know, it's 11:30 anyhow, and that's a loser. So, ditch the phone, get the sleep. The 7+ hours is the foundation of everything. And no diet, no exercise program is going to supersede all the problems that come from the lack of sleep. You're just tired and you get brain fog, and you're just not going to be successful. So that's the big one, and I'm really religious about that, setting up the environment. And that means no pets in the bed, because they move around. Even the kids, I'm like, look, I got legs tomorrow. You guys got to sleep in your own bed.
If it's leg day tomorrow, you're in your own bed.
Yeah, and they already know. They're used to it now. I'm just like, they even asked me, hey, Dad, is tomorrow leg day? Because they want to sleep with Mom and Dad. Yeah. My kids, we love our children, and they just love to be with us. But, my son in particular, he can't go 5 minutes without flip-flopping around and making these horrendous noises in the middle of the night. That's not a night's sleep, a disturbed sleep, or even sleep apnea. If you don't get a CPAP and remedy, you're holding your breath at night, then the quality of your sleep is horrendous. And I talk a lot about that in the program as well. So sleep's the big one, obviously. The 10-minute walks are easy. You don't have to do any more cardio than that. I'm not a huge cardio fan. And you see if you watch social media, you see everybody's kind of coming away from that. The whole 40 minutes on the treadmill every night in the gym. It's not terribly sustainable. It's not very effective. We don't see that more cardio equals more weight loss. It's good for your health, but you can get the same health benefits from 3 10-minute walks, and they're convenient, they're sustainable, they can fit your schedule, they do so much more. And we know that moving 3 times a day is better than moving 1. We see that in research on all-cause mortality from sedentary office workers, that moving around frequently throughout the day is better than doing 30 minutes of cardio at the end of the day. So 10-minute walks are easy, and a lot of the stuff I talked about, even then, now we're down to meal prep. Get a company to send you your meals, and just take that out of your worries. You just pop them into your microwave and you're done. It's all done for you. You save time, you save money. They're right there when you need it. Even when I'm working from home and I'm making a big breakfast, my breakfast is always Monster Mash. I'm just making bison, egg whites, and some bone broth. But I make 3, and I'll eat 1, and I'll put 2 in the thermos, and I just set them on the windowsill or on the kitchen counter. And now it doesn't matter. My meals are already done. All I got to worry about now is dinner. And if I've got to go pick the kids up at school, and then they've got to go to some after school events or whatever, I just grab my meal and take it with me in the car, and I never have to worry about detouring to Carl's Jr. or some other crap that derails your progress. So, and I eat the food I enjoy that feels good on me, like we've discussed. And so, meal prepping is another huge one. It does save me a ton of time. You think about just pulling over and stopping, even in the subway. It just takes you more time than if you've already got something sitting there ready for you. And particularly if you go to a restaurant, that's 40 minutes of your day soaked up just to get one meal that you could be done with in 6 minutes, in the car while you're waiting for your kids to do whatever they're doing. So I know it sounds probably overly rigid, but it frees up more time for me to do the things that I like doing, like spending the time with my kids. And I'm not running around trying to fill my belly, and spending more time and money on that. So I'm big on doing things that free up free time for me. That's why I tore out all the grass. Of course, I live in Vegas, but I tore out all the grass and put in turf and rocks. So now I don't have to mow the freaking lawn. And I found the place that had like a monthly membership for car washes. So now I don't have to wash my car. I just go over there and run it. The car wash,
offloading all the extra stress to have the
I
have
do.
a good time, yeah.
I just try and get rid of everything that takes my time that I don't really want, that I don't enjoy. I just made a list and I just figure out, how do I outsource this? Yeah. Even grocery shopping. I love to go to Costco, periodically, but I end up there 3 times a week because I got a big family. My pops lives with me and my 3 kids and my wife, and her sister and nieces come over all the time. And so I'm usually at Costco a lot. So I just called up Instacart and send them the list. And next thing you know, the groceries are at my door. Cost you $20, big deal. It's just little things like that give me time. I even, and this starts to get down into, really nitpicking, but, a lot of successful guys talk about how they just wear the same thing every day, which isn't hard for me because I just got my, that's all I got in my closet.
Yeah, you get vertical good stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm traveling back and forth to Albuquerque, so I'll stay out there for 5 days, and I'll come home for 9, and then I'll alternate because John trains Monday through Friday, so I'm with him 1 week, and then my partner Matt Whittemer out of Beat Training in Cincinnati comes out. That we alternate weeks so we can be with our families, and so I just set myself up completely down there with all the same stuff. So I'm not even hauling clothes back and forth. I got socks down there, I got underwear down there, I got shorts down there. I just got 2 of everything. I got my shaving kit down there and 1 at home. I got 2 of everything. But even at home, I'm the kind of guy, if I open the dryer, and this is going to get really neurotic, but if I open the dryer and there's my clothes, my wife's clothes, and the kids' clothes in there, my brain's just like, I got the attention span of a gnat. I could do 10 things at once, but if you ask me to do one thing that takes 10 minutes, I'm lost. I'm just like, so I open the dryer up and there's like 4 people's worth of clothes in there. Shit I don't even recognize. I don't know where it goes. I'm just like, forget it. You take care of it. So I wash my own clothes, so I know exactly what's in there by themselves, and then they're all the same. I have only one type of sock. I have only one type of underwear. I have only one type of short that I wear. Just a couple different colors maybe, and I have the same damn T-shirt. I wear the same thing every day, and to me, it takes all of those other little thoughts out of your head so you can focus on the big things. There's major decisions that you have to make every day that are important for your bottom line for success. And if you keep getting bogged down with a whole bunch of these other little niggling things that most people probably think I'm crazy, but it just takes up too much of my brain energy for the day to make these little decisions that I don't have the time nor need to make. And so I'm pretty freaking organized and consistent. I like to repeat the same behaviors every day. It's like Groundhog Day. Those are the behaviors that I found to be successful. And so I just keep doubling down on them.
What keeps you motivated, Stan? What really keeps you going?
I've just always been really, really passionate about bodybuilding and powerlifting and nutrition. I spent 30 years, traveling the world and spending tens of thousands of dollars and no shortage of time. I studied it in college. I was a coach, obviously I was a high school soccer coach, and I coached University of Oregon football players and track athletes. Of course, I competed for 25 years. During that time, I was trying to reach out to some of the best coaches I could find. I think everybody should have a coach. I worked with some of the best gurus in the business, Eddie Cohn, and obviously Flex Wheeler, Mark Bell, and all the other names that you can imagine in the industry. I've worked with them or collaborated or communicated with them over the years. And now more of the academics. I've recruited Damon McCune, who's a PhD RDN, to be the co-author of my book. And so we've spent hundreds of hours together just sifting through everything that I feel like I've compiled over the years to make sure it bumps up against the science well. And, I follow a lot of the great minds in the industry. I think the people who are both competitive and, academically accredited. The Greg Knuckles of the world from Mass Research Review, the Lane Nortons of the world, Brad Schoenfeld and his research on hypertrophy, and Brett Contreras and Dr. Andy Galpin. The list goes on and on and on.
I'm jealous.
We're just so lucky. When I started this whole adventure, there was no internet, and I just had to listen to the meathead behind the counter at Gold's, who was eating tuna out of a can and rice cakes. And I thought that was that's what I started doing. It's no wonder I wasn't, it took me so damn long to build any appreciable mass or strength. I was fumbling around doing all the wrong shit. So nowadays we're just overwhelmed with so much great information. There's crappy information out there too, but I think that for the most part, well, I'll have to qualify it by saying this. For the most part, we started to see the cream rise to the top, and then TikTok happened. And now all the charlatans are back, with their little 30 seconds of nonsense. And so it's like it'll never end.
But you're doing a good job, man, and you've been working with the best people and literally the greatest minds, man. And because you've been doing such good work, obviously you get rewarded with being able to do all these amazing things. Yeah, I'm quite jealous, Stan. You're doing all this real good work, and it's so awesome to see. And thanks for bringing it all to the forefront.
Thank you. And I'm still learning. I'm learning a lot. I went back and took some courses. I went and got my NSCA's CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Coach. I've attended seminars for a lot of the great minds. Barbell Medicine's another one that comes to mind. I attended their seminar, and Mark Ripeto's seminar. I'm constantly learning and reading, and I'm a member to Alan Aragon's research review. He's a fantastic mind in the nutrition space, and of course Mass Research Review with Greg Knuckles from Stronger by Science. So I'm constantly reading. I probably spend at least 4 or 5 hours. Yes, I'm still learning. I've said plenty of stupid shit over the years. I look back at some of my old videos and I cringe. if not entirety, but maybe at least. I just feel like I'm making strides even after all these years of doing everything I've done. There's still more to learn, and there's great people out there to learn it from. And at the end of the day, I did it. I achieved a lot, and I think so. I have a lot to say and share about that. But that's my anecdote. And then the athletes that I work with, of course, are testimonials. But at the end of the day, you really have to make sure that the science bears out, and that I'm not making recommendations that are inconsistent with what the studies show us.
Yeah, for sure. And I bet you got to love every single time that you learn something new, or so this new study that comes out or anything, and it just backs up the vertical diet, and you're like, yes, yes, I knew it.
Yeah, indeed.
No, that's so good. Well, Stan, man, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and stuff. If anyone wants to find you or grab your book and start optimizing their lives, where should they go?
Everything's at Stan Efferding. StanEfferding.com is my website. You can link to my meal prep company. We deliver nationwide in the U.S. And I've got the Vertical Diet 3.0 ebook on there. I just released the Vertical Diet book on Amazon. But the only difference between the two is that the ebook is something I update periodically, hence version 3.0. And I've got working on the 4.0 now. And it takes a little deeper dive into the training and into the some of the HRT stuff, the blood testing, and stuff like that. It's a little more comprehensive and more specific for some athletes, whereas the book is kind of for general population. But they're both great. Some people like to hold on to something and have it to highlight and to take notes of and keep in their bookshelf. So those are both out there. And then Instagram's at Stan Efferding, and YouTube. A lot of great videos on YouTube. My rants, I spent a lot of time preparing those and writing those, and those are YouTube Stan Efferding as well. So everything can be found there.
No, well, thank you so much for sharing, man, and thanks for all the good knowledge and stuff. And for everyone listening, I hope you got some notes down of this and got something really valuable, because I definitely did. So big thank you.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for having me on, man.